Hey guys, Fareed here, coming at you from Noida, India, actually. So, my co-host Toby and myself were both in France, and where went to film school, and I ended up, over this lockdown period, I flew back to India. Looks like I'm gonna be here for a while, and so I just wanted to wish everybody well and that everyone's in good health and to stay safe, stay indoors, wash your hands. And we recorded a really fun episode. And for today's episode, we kind of got into our favorite movies of the last 10 years. We talked a lot about the industry sort of in the state right now with this whole COVID situation, what's going to happen to movie theaters and film delays. We got into this crazy story about this film New Mutants, which was meant to come out way back when, but like it's still kind of in free fall, so that's an amazing story. And yeah, I also want to just address something real quick before we get on with the show, which is that two great actors here in India have passed away, Irfan Khan and Rishi Kapoor. Both were giants in the film business. Both of them meant a great deal to the world. I mean, for global cinema, Irfan Khan was in a lot of Hollywood films like Life of Pi, where he was Pi, and he'd pop up here and there, like that Tom Hanks film Inferno, Slumdog Millionaire. But even though I am Indian by ethnicity, I was kind of raised in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. So I didn't get the biggest upbringing of Bollywood films, but he means a lot to a lot of people here. And I have seen some of his like more native films, like Ban Singh Tomar and Piku and all these films. And Rishi Kapoor was like my dad's like childhood hero. My dad grew up in like the prime of 70s Bollywood, so there's a lot of action movies coming out, those crazy 4-hour epics where people are just flying up in the air from like one punch. And Rishi Kapoor was a guy who did all the romance films, so his movies were very kind of sweet and good-natured and really inspired a lot of what became of the industry in the years since. So yeah, want to just address that and on with the show. I hope you enjoy it, and take care, guys.
Fareed Chiron, have you heard of the tragedy of Josh Boone's The New Mutants?
I have. It's a story the Jedi. It's a story the Jedi won't tell you. I know where that quote was from. I've seen episode 3.
Yes.
I saw episode 3.
I have not. I refuse to watch the
How
prequels.
dare you? You don't dare quote Palpatine and not know and not have seen episode 3. There needs to be a law.
We're friends with Doran. Doran always quotes Palpatine, and yeah, that's where I learned it from. So I was more, if anything, I was quoting Doran.
Okay, somehow
Our
that's
good editor friend Doran.
Somehow that's a pass because it's Doran. Anyway, tell me about the tragedy of Josh Boone's The New Mutants. Tell the world. Tell everyone.
All right. So this comes from an article. I think it's Screen Rant. It is Screen Rant. It'll be in the description down below. So this film was originally shot in 2017. For anyone listening, right now we're in 2020.
Yeah. Are you sure?
I wish we weren't.
Tell me about it.
This film was originally supposed to be released on April 13th, 2018. But they didn't want it to compete with Deadpool 2, okay?
Right.
You gotta remember, at this point, Fox is basically on their, like, one foot is in the grave. Like, They can't even put these two films too close to each other. Otherwise, they think that it's going to steal from the other.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, and then the film was set to come out February 22nd, 2019. So that is almost a year it was pushed. But they didn't want it to go up against Dark Phoenix. Sure. So it was pushed again.
Sure.
And then it was supposed to come out August 2nd, 2019. But then Disney bought Fox.
Right.
Everything, yeah. So everything had to be adjusted again. And apparently Disney was not happy with the original, what they had so far. So there was also some reshoots going on throughout this process.
This is crazy, man.
But right now, it was supposed to go into theaters, I think it was April 3rd, 2020.
Okay,
and then
that's very bad timing. Very bad timing.
Yeah, and then due to the COVID-19 pandemic, it was postponed again, and clearly God does not want this movie to be in theaters, and I'm so sorry for Josh Boone.
Yeah, man. Guess the New Mutants ain't so new anymore,
It's
so sad. It's so sad.
This movie is like 2 years old it was supposed to come out. Jeez.
I do think that the one silver lining from this, because I have read a teeny bit about, of course, this whole thing. I mean, it's just such a well-documented catastrophe. But I think the final cut of that movie is Josh Boone's cut, which, being that it's a horror movie, right, that has X-Men characters, which is a pretty unique idea. Like, let's take a horror film with...
It makes sense, though.
It does. I mean, if you saw Mystique in real life, you'd be mortified, you know?
Of course, yeah.
If it's like real life, I'd be terrified. And it, it's just it's like a perfect way to build on that. And let's say, well, maybe it could work as a horror. And Josh Boone's a good director. I really liked, a film that's very similar and also a horror movie, The Fault in Our Stars, which was the last film he made before. Or was it? I think he made, was it that or something else? I'm pretty sure it was. I'm going to look that up,
Let's
actually.
look it up right now. Okay, you look it up. I actually
I'm
didn't
totally
see
on
Fault
that.
in Our Stars.
I'm totally on that. Hold on a minute. The Fault in Our Stars. Yeah, it was Josh Boone, and he shot that in 2014. Well, it came out in... So yeah, what a jump. He goes from The Fault in Our Stars and then to the New Mutants.
It definitely makes sense. Like when you think about it, you're like, this actually is a really cool idea, because like sure, we're used to the X-Men, which are like, Cyclops, he shoots lasers, or Jean Grey, she's telepath, but also lots of these powers, if you didn't know what was going on and you become a teenager, it's basically Carrie. And I think they've hand-selected some of the most terrifying superpowers, which if they manifested, you'd think I'm a monster, you know?
Right. I think that, like, in that respect, the fact that we're getting his cut as opposed to like a studio mandated version, just kind of crapped into theaters, like that Four-Stick disaster from like 2015, which also was a very sad situation, albeit different circumstance. Like, I'm at least glad that it'll be his vision and for a very unique idea, and he's a talented filmmaker, clearly. And good cast. I mean, what's she was in The Witch, and Anya Taylor-Joy.
Yeah.
Anya Taylor-Joy, right? Also in those Shyamalan films.
And we got the girl from Game of Thrones, the little one with the sword. I don't know names.
I don't know.
Okay?
I don't know Game of Thrones. But from all accounts, I probably dodged a bullet with that one. I've heard things.
Well, I want to ask you a question.
Yes.
So, if you could make your film, let's say this is whatever Fareed Chiron film you want to make, and it's a feature, and it's whatever idea you want to make, and the studio's going to back it and fund it, and it'll be your cut, no studio interference, but it will be delayed for 3 years.
Sure.
Would you sign up to that?
Like,
if you could release it 3 years earlier, like when it's supposed to be, but it'll be heavily studio interfered, and considering like your style and they want to market to as many people as possible, it will be very different. What would you pick?
I would definitely not want anything of mine to be out there that doesn't bear my identity. You know what I mean? I don't care how long it takes. I'd rather that be the final result. You know, I think unquestionably.
So you're gonna wait 3 years?
I mean, dude, put it this way: like Kenny Lonergan, who made Manchester by the Sea, he made a movie called Margaret. He shot it in 2005, and it stars Anna Paquin as a high school student in New York. Gets into a terrible accident with someone, and really great coming of age movie. Frankly, one of the best movies of the last decade, which is a little foreshadowing to something we're gonna discuss later.
Ooh, foreshadowing! Love that.
Point is, we basically that movie basically could not be edited because Lonergan had disputes with the financiers or so I think one particular producer in the editing suite, and it lasted something like 7 years. So it went through multiple cuts and multiple lawsuits, obviously, because the film was meant to come out in 2005 or 6, and it ended up coming out in 2011. It's crazy. And at one point, Scorsese and Thelma Schoonmaker, his editor, they came in to work on it as well. Like, you got the big guns, literally, like Martin Scorsese, like world's greatest filmmaker, shows up like, I'll save your movie, and it didn't happen. So it's like all hope was lost, and he finally was able to get it out in 2011, and it's like one of the best films of the last 10 years. In the case of him, because he's brilliant, he wasn't like cancelled. He was able to make Manchester by the Sea. Matt Damon, who was in Margaret, produced that movie, co-produced it. So he was back on his feet, and I don't mind if it meant for me. If I made Margaret, Toby, and I had to spend 7 years to get that extended cut of Margaret, then I would spend those 7 years getting it because it's that good. well, I don't think I can make a movie that good, but if you know what I'm saying, right? Like it's worth.
Yeah, I get you.
It's worth the fight. It's worth the grind to get that made.
I mean, if we're saying it's a feature, I'm on the line because here's the thing. I got that mentality where I'm like, okay, even if it's not perfect, I need to make it be done and go on to the next thing.
Sure, sure.
Like I need to. I'm never have something where I'm like, this is my magnum opus. I'm always like, okay, we're making this project. We have this time frame, and we need to put it out, even if it's not perfect. We need to just put it out there so we can make. And I know that's not like a really popular opinion.
Yeah, man. I understand where you're coming from too, but like I don't know. I guess it's just it also depends on the project at hand,
I think in the end, I actually would like go the 3 years. Maybe I could write something or edit something on the meantime. Like it's not like you have to sit in a box for 3 years.
Sure. No, I get that for sure. So yeah, God, where were we actually talking? What were we talking about? We were talking about.
We were about
New Mutants. We got onto the New Mutants thing, which was its own. Yeah. So yeah. I'm glad you brought that up. That's it's a crazy situation. Okay. Well, with that said, I also want to bring up something else. As I mentioned before, with everything going on with the coronavirus and with all of us kind of shacked up in our homes, of course, this has caused a seismic change in the film industry at large all over the world. And of course, that means a bunch of films have been delayed or, pushed way back. It also can spell doom for a lot of movie theater chains. Like I think AMC filed for bankruptcy not too long ago. Like there's a huge shift going on right now in the industry.
Yeah. I'm looking at this article right here. It's from therap.com. We'll put this article down in this description of this YouTube video, but I wanted to bring up these in particular. Mulan, it was originally supposed to come out March 27th, and it's now supposed to come out July 24th, which, of all these films, it's like the one that's been pushed back, but like it's still relatively soon, I don't know how many movie theaters are going to be open in July.
Yeah, a lot of these. I mean, Christopher Nolan's kind of fighting to keep movie theaters alive with the whole Tenet thing. And Mulan's a massive IP. It's big property, a lot of money. I mean, Tenet's $200 million as well. So, for these kind of tentpole, big blockbuster films, like I think it's just a necessity to kind of try to keep them.
They're major studios, like they gotta meet the bottom line. And then there's always like these superhero films and horror films, and action films. They get the most audience because those films are better when you have that audience cheering or gasping all at the same time. Like that's a crowd experience.
Well, recently the Russo brothers held a live watch party for Avengers Endgame, and I think
fun.
Yeah, and RDJ showed up for the first hour. I didn't tune in because I was busy watching Scorsese movies, but there was a little section where Russo, I think Robert Downey Jr., who's friends with Paul Thomas Anderson, kind of went, PTA actually recorded the crowd in his screening. If he went to go see Endgame and he recorded that crowd cheering, and it's like he wanted to show how to RDJ how they're keeping cinema alive, which I find so cool.
You don't go to the theater because there's a big screen. You go to the theaters because that's also a crowd environment, and you can't control how that crowd reacts.
Yeah.
And these films, they need a crowd reaction, and they thrive when there's a crowd. So you go to see the Avenger movies so you can cheer when Captain America picks up Thor's hammer. It's a theme park. He's completely right when he says it's a theme park, right?
And that's actually going back to the COVID thing. Then how are we gonna, these big movies, right? How are they gonna get that crowd? I mean, it's gonna be social distancing, and I'm sure, and they're gonna have to uphold the regulations, right? So, what do you think's gonna happen?
Well, that brings us to the next thing. They got this film, Lovebirds, which Paramount postponed, and then Netflix acquired it, and now they've released it on Netflix in May, I believe. I don't remember what day, but I think it's May something.
Gotcha.
And so that might be where a lot of these films go. Maybe smaller projects. I doubt Mulan or the big Marvel films are going to go on Disney Plus or something. Mm-hmm. But maybe some of these smaller films will go to a streaming service.
Anyhow, man, so yeah, I think that's pretty much there's a whole bunch of movies that have been pushed. And
Fareed, what I love, I love things when they're in groups of 10. And we just finished the 2010s, and I sure do love them. I wish we could have more of tens of things.
What are you
Was
talking
that a good
about?
segue? Was that a good segue or
No,
not?
there was a one. It was
I'm
good.
trying.
No, I got
I'm
it.
trying to co-host.
No, I got it. I was just like, no, I got you. So we want to talk a little bit what my beloved.
Clearly not.
Well, we're going to now. Our beloved co-host is referring to the 2010s, the past decade, which was a wonderful decade for the art of cinema, and for many other things, but specifically cinema.
I got 10 years older.
So now we're tasked with this Herculean. We have this Herculean task of compiling our best movies of the decade, of the last 10 years, which is a shame because I only got introduced to movies like last week, and I've only seen like 12.
This isn't funny because you've been doing your list since I think it was December. And you asked me 3 days ago, hey, you should make a list too. And I was like, oh no, because I have not been watching as many movies to prepare for this.
I recall the conversation being something like, "Hey Toby, hey man, what's up? So you need to do your best with the decade list now. You have 3 days." And you're like, "What?" And I'm like, "Bye." And I just hung up on you. But I thought that did the job. You know, you got the list now, so it worked. And
I got a list.
here we are. No. Look, our co-host has seen. He's a wonderful filmmaker, and he's seen quite a few great films. I mean, I know.
You don't need to talk me up. You don't need to talk me up. Let's just get into it. Should we start with you?
Okay. Okay, because I care about you, man. Okay, so
Hey.
I guess we'll start with my list. I guess, and so from numbers 10 to 1. I think before I actually get into the actual list, the top 10, there are some movies that didn't quite make it, and I really want to kind of give those a little shout out. And okay, you know what? I'll start with Margaret, which was a film we brought up earlier. It's kind of
That sounds oddly familiar.
doesn't it? It's almost like we just talked about it. No, just to kind of it had to foreshadow to something, right? So, Margaret is a great coming of age movie from Kenneth Lonergan. Just an incredible performance by Anna Paquin, Mark Ruffalo, Matt Damon, great cast. And Lonergan's one of the great writers of our time. One of the most underrated too. You know, when we talk screenwriters nowadays, we tend to quickly go to Sorkin and Steve Zalian, and of course Tarantino, I guess. But you know, he's just one of the masters. So him for sure. Son of Saul, which I don't know if you've seen, but it's this incredible film. Takes place during the Holocaust, sort of shot on a 4:3 aspect ratio. It's like literally following the back of this guy who has to basically kind of dispose of bodies during the Holocaust after they've all been gassed. You know, it's really, really tragic and effectively.
I saw the opening to it. It's very strong.
Right, yeah, and it's this Jewish like worker who has to like he's trying to find this rabbi to give this like child who's passed away a proper burial, you know, and that film is so uniquely shot, and it won the Grand Prix at Cannes. I mean, it's amazing, and definitely gonna have to talk about that. Then a couple of movies. I mean, Phantom Thread almost made the list. Love Paul Thomas Anderson, and that's probably one of his best movies, one of his most romantic, along with Punch Drunk Love. And yeah, I guess the last shout out I'll give to you know what, The Turin Horse. I'm gonna talk about just the last shout out is to The Turin Horse, which we talked about on our last episode. So the 4 people who remember us perhaps talking about it. Great Bellatar movie, very bleak. Mostly long takes in black and white. Like, it's a film your art professor would love, but you love it too because I told you to. And it's a really great film from a master Hungarian filmmaker. And actually, Son of Saul is also from Hungary, so interesting. Hungary, good movies, yeah. Okay, so on to the actual list. So at number 10, I have one of the most heartbreaking animated movies of all time. It caps off a career from a master filmmaker, one of the best filmmakers of all time, honestly. And that is The Wind Rises by Hayao Miyazaki. The Wind Rises is just this unparalleled, tragic yet profoundly beautiful biopic. It's a fictionalized biopic of an aviation engineer who was actually around during World War II, and his name was, I think, let me look it up, Jiro Horikoshi, probably butchered that, and he created the Mitsubishi A6M0, which is this massive fighter aircraft that was used by the Empire of Japan during World War II. The film is more about taking something that's beautiful, a creation, a machine, an aircraft, and using it for such a horrible purpose. And it's more about the lament of where all this hard work and this artistry goes into. I mean, Miyazaki is all throughout his career, he captured the wonders of childhood with My Neighbor Totoro and Spirited Away, which is just like the best thing ever made. And this was oddly enough a film that, while had some of that youthful exuberance, there are scenes of him when he's young and discovering aviation and his creativity. It ultimately becomes this really tragic romance because he meets a young woman and they have a romance, and it's very sad because the young woman is ill. I don't want to get into it too much, but it's just, I don't know, Miyazaki has an effect on you that just is indescribable. And yeah, The Wind Rises. I mean, you've seen a couple of his movies, right? I mean,
yeah, of course. Yeah. And what really strikes me is that, like, first of all, like, Stuart Ghibli is a fantastic. It's just fantastic.
Yeah, they don't have a Cars 2 in their slate. You know what I mean? Like, Pixar's great, but they have Cars 2.
They're fantastic, and there's so much detail. But you see in his films, a lot of them, there is this emphasis on these flying devices, on how they fly, how they move. Even Kiki's Delivery Service, which is basically just a broom. But like, he's always got that love for being in the air, for flying, for these massive giant steel machines. And it's and you can see it in how he animates them and how they all work, that he really admires it. So it must come from a real close place to him.
Absolutely. In fact, that's a good double bill, Porco Rosso, because that's World War One, and then Wind Rises is World War Two, and they're both about, one's about the aviation engineer and one's about an ex-fighter. So it has this beautiful full circle aspect, because Porco Rosso was one of his earlier films as well, right? So it's kind of perfect. All right, so to follow that up, at number 9, I just want
Number 9.
You got to do that for each number now. That's going to have to be a thing,
Number 9.
So for number 9, I have got to talk about Denis Villeneuve and his movie Incendies, which came out in 2010. It's a Canadian film. Denis Villeneuve is Canadian. And this was that breakout foreign language film that really catapulted him into this massive Hollywood master that he's become with Prisoners, Enemy. Although Enemy was shot, I think, before the whole Hollywood thing, but had Jake Gyllenhaal in it, so it counts. Sicario, Arrival, freaking Blade Runner 2049. I mean, good lord. This guy, he made like 6 or I think 5 great movies in 5 years.
He clearly made a deal with the devil, and he's going to make his 10th film, and then when he goes up to receive his Oscar or something, Satan's going to just drag him down to hell, and he'll just yell out, "It was worth it."
He even made a couple movies before Incendies that I really love. Polytechnique comes to mind, Maelstrom, and on the topic of women in film, because Incendies is perhaps it depicts one of the strongest women I've seen in a movie. It's basically based on a play, actually, and it's a movie about these Canadian twins that travel to an unknown country in the Middle East, where there was a bloody civil war going on many years ago, and they're trying to uncover the past of their mother, their very sick mother, and
very sick mother.
She had passed, and they have to go and find out what happened to her life, because maybe there's someone else that's related to them that's out there somewhere, and they don't know. Ooh. And great movie, highly recommend seeing it, especially if you love the Prisoners and Sicario and all those great movies. Okay, so you gonna do the number thing, or should I just go to the next one?
Number 8.
So, I'm a huge David Fincher fan, sans Benjamin Button or Alien 3, but he doesn't really say Alien 3 is his movie anyway. So, The Social Network is one of the best films of the last 10 years, and it's my number 8 pick because it kind of defined an entire generation for us, didn't it? And Aaron Sorkin, who wrote The West Wing and all these other great movies, and David Fincher, who's friggin' David Fincher, came together and they made it a sophisticated, powerful Shakespearean work of art, man. And it's Fincher shoots, if you watch the behind, how David Fincher shot Social Network, he would plant 3 or 4 cameras in one set. He would use so much multicam and have all these takes and just cover an entire scene, and it almost felt like a play for the actors, like, and in a way that a play kind of, the theatricality of it is a constant repetition throughout a week, or a month, or however long you have to keep doing that same thing again every day. That's Fincher's set, except you have to do it every 2 minutes. You have to do the same thing, and it's just such a, and you can, that's why with Fincher, like, for all of that kind of cold craftsmanship, his camera's very static, is very moving very specifically, it's like, for that mathematically perfect way of shooting, the actors are shockingly natural, and the performances are shockingly organic. Actually, you know what, do you have anything to say about Social Network at all, though? I mean, from your perspective?
I mean, you kind of covered most of it. Like, it's a fantastic film. Like, what else can I say? Like, it's fantastically written.
Yeah.
I love the way that the characters feel really fleshed out, and that, this sounds so generic and basic. Like, I like how the friends are characters and the characters are friends.
And they're in a movie. This film was a film.
Andrew Garfield is in the movie, and that is always good.
All right, number 7. We're gonna shift gears.
Number 7.
We're gonna shift gears to another country, to perhaps my favorite filmmaker from that country, and that's Lee Chang-dong, who in South Korea made the movie Burning in 2018. So just want to put that out there. I think South Korea has the best filmmakers, the slate of filmmakers, period, today. I mean, Bong Joon-ho obviously is the superstar right now with what he did with Parasite.
Yeah, like, everyone knows his name now.
Yeah, I've been a fan of his since Memories of Murder, and I was like 2 years old, and no, I'm kidding, I think I was
This explains so much.
In 2011, I think I saw it for the first time, and I remember loving it, and then I saw The Host, and then I saw Mother, and Okja, which came out not too long ago. I wasn't too big on Okja, but it's still, they're all incredible films in their own right. And then you got Park Chan-wook, who, Old Boy, his Vengeance trilogy, sort of like Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance and Lady Vengeance and The Handmaiden, which is almost on this list, actually. That, and then Lee Chang-dong is like my favorite, actually. I mean, also a quick shout out to Kim Ji-woon, who made I Saw the Devil, which is also almost on my list. But yeah, I want to talk a little bit about Lee Chang-dong, because he's a filmmaker who's more interested in questions than answers, and he has this remarkable ability to kind of strip a movie off of what we expect to be cinematic qualities like score, kind of a vibrancy, and he keeps things very rooted in kind of a natural environment, and he doesn't use a lot of music and stuff. It's very much like the Dogma movement that Thomas Vinterberg and Lars von Trier put together with Breaking the Waves and Festin and all these great movies. And in the case of Burning, it's kind of hard to describe this movie because it's so incredibly ambiguous. Long story short, these two childhood friends were in Paju, which is like a sort of this town sort of thing. I think it's a city in South Korea, and they these childhood friends meet up, this guy and this girl. They kind of hit it off and reminisce about their past, and maybe a little romance or something starts to spark between them. Then the girl goes on a trip to Africa and comes back with this guy, also Korean, and they were both kind of stuck at the airport for a while. They met up, came back to Paju, and that's all I can say, because after that you start realizing, okay, maybe it's just, because the thing is, this girl kind of still likes our lead, who was the first guy she met, and this new guy, our lead, and her kind of go to dinner, and these three kind of just maybe have a friendship and hang out, But we start to suspect something's really wrong. And I can't explain how, but it's in the performances and it's in the filmmaking. Something feels off. There's such an unease and such a quiet tension because you don't quite know what's happening. And as soon as you realize that something potentially very unsettling and dangerous has actually been going on the whole time. Again, Lee Chang-dong, this is, I don't think a lot of people have seen his work, but he made a movie called Poetry in 2010. Another great film, Oasis, Secret Sunshine. These are masterpieces. I don't want to get into, because I could talk about him all day. I love Lee Chang-dong, but definitely Burning. Catch that one. All right, number 6.
Number 6.
Okay, number 6 is a film that the last 10 minutes of this movie will never leave you. They will never leave you, and they are some of the most haunting filmmaking ever. It's a documentary by the name of The Act of Killing. The Act of Killing, which was directed by Joshua Oppenheimer, who, while not exactly a filmmaker by trade prior to The Act of Killing, was kind of, I think, a videographer, and quite a strong education he had. I think it was meant to be his thesis, actually, for something, and he made this harrowing, incredible film about basically these individuals who helped in the killings of 1965 and 66 in Indonesia. What had happened was that the government in Indonesia had been overthrown, I believe, by the military or something to that effect. And what ended up happening is that it led to a mass genocide of those who were deemed as communists. When I mean genocide, it's like literally, I mean, I don't know how many people died, but our main character in the film is one of the men who carried out the killings on behalf of the government. And he has claimed to kill 1,000 people personally. Now, I understand all this is a huge, like, why would you watch a movie like that? I understand. What this movie really is a slow and just incredible deconstruction of a man who's slowly realizing that he's got this monster lurking in him. And when you first meet the guy, he's like gregarious, he loves movies, he likes to dance, he describes his killings with a certain callousness. And you're just like, how? Is he a psychopath? Is this guy... And you don't get that vibe that he's really a psycho so much as he treats it like a day job that he did, you know? And so you're like, who is this? And as the movie progresses, it just becomes... this incredible, you realize pretty quickly that there's something deeply upsetting him about it, and it becomes, I don't know, the act of killing. There's also a complimentary film to it called The Look of Silence, which is from the victim's perspective. So some of the victims, their families, and it's just brilliant filmmaking, and yeah, act of killing.
Number 5.
Number 5. All right, look. As you can tell, I'm a pretty pretentious guy, and I like to go watch some pretty obscure movies and talk about them because that's what I do, man. And this is probably the most obscure, which it did win the Palme d'Or at Cannes, but it's just okay. So it's from Thailand, and it's called Uncle Boonmi Who Can Recall His Past Lives. So the movie is directed by a filmmaker by the name of Apichatpong Virasetakul, whose nickname is Joe. I'm still going to call him Apichatpong because I don't like calling him Joe. And Apichatpong is this brilliant Thai master of dream-like ambient style of filmmaking. He's made a movie called Cemetery of Splendor, which again has that kind of dreamlike quality. His movies basically center around spirituality and ghosts and people from the past coming to revisit you and all these things. His films are really just they're experiences. You have to inhale them in a way, you know what I mean? And so Uncle Boonmi certainly earns that. It's a movie about a guy called Uncle Boonmi who is dying, and as he's dying, we never see him saying I can recall my past lives, but we keep cutting away to vignettes of random episodes and then cut back to Boonmi, which implies that
so you're saying they never say the title of the film in the film?
They don't, man. I know that probably means it's a bad movie for you, but it's actually really good. Trust me. So Uncle Boonmi is and what happens early on is he gets visited by he gets visited by the ghost of his dead wife who died young, and she comes back to visit him as he's now dying in his older age. And his son, who, hear me out, went missing years ago and has now come back reincarnated as this Bigfoot monkey-esque monster with 2 really red eyes. It's a very strange film, but it's beautiful, and definitely see Uncle Boonmi. I think if anything, it's just you'll never have seen anything like it ever. Okay, you may say the next number.
Number 4.
Number 4, I've got a movie that a lot of people have obviously seen, and it's Moonlight from Barry Jenkins. That's right. Moonlight is... I think you've seen this movie too. So Moonlight's one of those films that... it's just got such a relatability to it. You don't have to be that character. You don't have to be, black or gay or be from Liberty City or anything to kind of feel a lot of the insecurities that he's feeling, I think the kind of adolescence, the kind of transitional periods in our lives where we come into ourselves and... a lot of us have a tendency to kind of let our past kind of define us in a lot of ways or hold us back from progressing in a way that's healthy. And Moonlight, beyond anything, what it's able to do so gracefully, it's shot with these beautiful lenses that I think were made specifically for that film in Germany. And, it's got this really dreamlike vibe to it. I think James Laxton, who's a brilliant cinematographer, he worked with Barry Jenkins before as well, and they have you can see that shorthand on screen. It's just got such a perfect grasp on its aesthetic. It kind of reminded me of Wong Kar-wai a little bit, if you know Jenkins at all, you know that he's a big fan of Wong Kar-wai, and he even used a song from Happy Together. It's a great movie, but also with the kind of an LGBTQ thing going on, and he put that into Moonlight, that song. No, it's just a movie that sweeps you off your feet, and that universal concept of sort of running away from your past or not confronting it in the right way to then move on. I don't think there are many movies made that are able to capture that as beautifully as Moonlight. So yeah, gotta have Moonlight on my number 4.
I remember when when Moonlight won the Oscar. Someone told me that that the only reason it won was because it was this progressive message film. It's about a gay black man, and no, that is not the reason it won. It is amazing. Mahershala Ali. I mean, just Mahershala Ali is reason enough, but like. It's such a fan. Okay, I didn't mean like Mahershala Ali in every single rule because then you got Green Book. But I mean like Mahershala Ali in Moonlight is reason. Shots fired. I'm
Shots
saying
fired.
what you said.
Toby is a savage person. You're a savage man, Toby.
You told me to say that. You paused the recording and you said, "Toby, you need to tell people that they shouldn't like Green Book." And I just repeated. Wow. Okay.
Anyway, so number 3.
Number 3.
Iran is a treasure trove of cinema like South Korea, man. You know, right now, Ashkar Farhadi has been making amazing movies, you know, as well. And, but Abbas Kiarostami was one of those great humanist filmmakers that truly understood people. He loved people. He loved relationships. He loved exploring the contradictions and those like mini facets that we all display from time to time that gives us a way, kind of shows human beings for what they are. And he had a very optimistic view, I think, about what people are. I think he was a man of a very delicate, kind of simple I guess approach, you know, or what was I saying? Yeah, like he has a very simple approach to cinema and filmmaking. But it's so profound that once the movie's over, in spite of its simplicity, you just feel this grand sense of like being swept away. Kind of like what I said about Moonlight, where also a very intimate film, that experience of watching it, but then you just feel this, you know, feeling. And Certified Copy is a movie about this British writer who comes to Tuscany, I think, for a book signing or to talk about his new book, which, by the way, Toby, is the title of the film, Certified Copy. So there you go.
Oh.
Yeah.
Do they say Certified Copy in the film?
I wouldn't be surprised, man, if I look back and watch it. I think they do. Either way.
Do they say it like 3 times and then like
like Beetlejuice, like
yeah, like Beetlejuice. That's how you define a good movie. Like how many times they say the name of the film inside the film.
I don't like you. So in Certified Copy, what basically happens is that this British writer goes on he meets his fan, who's played by the lovely and beautiful and perfect Juliette Binoche, who, as you can tell, I have a kind of a fondness for. And him and her basically go walk around Tuscany where they're at and have a little discussion just about the book, about life, about art. And this is like a writer and his fan, basically. And the thing that happens is, as the movie progresses, this relationship between this writer and this fan, or I wouldn't call her fan, like an antiques dealer, let's say, like that's her job in the movie. It starts to become this thing where it transforms into like a romantic thing, but not in like they start making out and they're a couple. It's like suddenly they just like randomly with like a snap, they just assume roles as a married couple. And you're like, wait, they're not married. We never saw them. And now they're talking and acting like they're married, like authentically acting like they're married.
They're playing house.
They're playing house, and they're doing it in a way where you're like, I mean, how? And it poses a big question mark if art can be replicated. Like, if you could take the Mona Lisa and then make a fake version of it, can that fake version of Mona Lisa still have the same emotional impact and the same artistry as the original? And in the case of this whole ruse of being a married couple, it almost feels like that sudden narrative shift was Kiarostami going, is that relationship, does it still have that genuineness even if they're assuming these roles? And look, I it's hard to describe this movie again. A lot of these movies are so abstract and cryptic in their kind of storytelling, I don't want to even try. But it's Kiarostami, it's Juliette Binoche, and it's a masterpiece. And
I actually really want to see this film now that you've got me on board with it, because I really like questions like this when they really are explored in a film, and maybe not even answered, but just shown in different situations, and like they're personified in what the characters do. And that's super interesting.
So at number two,
Number two.
I gotta put The Master by Paul Thomas Anderson, who I mentioned earlier, who did Phantom Thread and Inherent Vice and a bunch of great movies. So PTA is kind of like, I think he's currently carrying the torch for like best living American filmmaker, certainly the most interesting, you know, in that he went through the biggest like artistic evolution of any big major director of the last 20 years, I think. I mean, there are many actually, but you know, Boogie Nights, Magnolia, those are like Robert Altman, Martin Scorsese influenced energetic films with lots of camera movement, really emotionally draining and sweeping, and look at me, I'm this young hotshot filmmaker and notice me, and then Punch Drunk Love came out with Adam Sandler, and it felt like there was a little change. It still had some of that manic energy, but it also felt a bit looser, or loose, and I don't think looser is a word. Anyway, it just felt like more sedated and like a little more relaxed. And then when There Will Be Blood came along, it was like, okay, he's like cemented this like serious auteur status. And so The Master is basically a film about Joaquin Phoenix, who won Best Actor recently for Joker. He should have won for this movie, but he lost to Daniel Day-Lewis. So okay, I get that for Lincoln. I understand. But he plays he plays a World War II veteran who recently coming back from the war. It takes place in 1950, and he's out of the war, and we get the sense he's very disturbed. You know, he seems to be sex obsessed. I mean, this movie, you know, it's like people call The Master like the great American movie of the 21st century. It's like one of the most aggressively horny movies ever made, and it's like got this prestige status, which I just think is amazing. That's like perfect to me. And he's like this insane sex obsessed alcoholic who is looking for meaning across America. He's doing job to job, storekeeper. You know, he worked not storekeeper, but he works as a photographer, and then he's in I think a corn farm or something like that, and he ends up in on a yacht. He kind of staggers into a yacht, and he stumbles upon this guy who called himself the Master, and he kind of is played by the late great Philip Seymour Hoffman, and his wife is Amy Adams, another great, you know, incredible thespian, and they seem to be running this movement that is very similar to Scientology, which is what the movie caught some, you know, it got some controversy for at the time. I think it's rather evident that's Anderson's influence. He's kind of talked about it on the record, like, I was influenced by Dianetics and L. Ron Hubbard. But the movie's not about Scientology. It's about these two men. It's about the Master and Joaquin Phoenix's character, Freddy, and how they have this kind of master and then the dog kind of ownership, you know, where Freddy's this primal character, and the Master is a very kind of poised and regal and intellectual type dude, and his whole thesis for his movement is that man is not an animal, and that we don't have those, you know, we cannot succumb to our basic primal urges, you know, because that's not who we are. And yet throughout the movie, right, we see Philip Seymour Hoffman like just having these fits of anger, and it's like it feels like contrarian, but at the same time it's like it might also be coming from a kind of affection that he has for Freddy, and you don't quite know. Like, Anderson's called the movie a romance, and he's even publicly said that he's publicly said he wished the movie was like a gay love story. Like I think Mark Maron was interviewing him on a podcast or something, and he was like, yeah, like I wish they'd gotten together and started making out, and it probably would have been a better movie because it clears up a lot of that. There's like insane tension between them, so you just gotta wonder. But it's just amazing. It's a massive leap for PTA. Like, again, very restrained, very stylish, but you know, a lot of close-ups. Shot on 65 millimeter, which is a massive film format used for big vistas, and you know, in the 60s and at that time, you know, it was like this super high resolution. But the Master uses this massive format, like 65, for basements and faces and little rooms with people. It doesn't care about this. It subverts that expectation of like the epicness of 65 millimeter. It chooses to keep it purely like on people and subjects, and it has a very documentary feel at times because of how realistic it is about how someone could be lured in or seduced by a movement to get better. You know, it actually, a lot of the dialogue is taken verbatim from this incredible World War II documentary that for many years was cancelled or like not allowed to be shown on record because it was so harrowing. It basically was in like a VA type hospital where it showed the PTSD of all of the people coming back from the war, and it was directed by John Huston, you know, the great John Huston, and so they actually didn't release it, and when they did, it really showed the trauma these men had, and a lot of the scenes of Joaquin Phoenix in the hospital in the beginning there's literally an entire section of dialogue that was like lifted from that movie, from the documentary. So it's just beautiful film about so many things. I'm in awe of it. Just check it out. And if you are intrigued at all by P.T. Anderson, just watch everything he does. You'll be smarter in every way. You've seen The Master, so what do you think on that movie? What do you think about it?
I mean, what I definitely remember the most about it is these beautiful scenes, which I want to use this reference from Hayao Miyazaki, where he has these scenes in his films, which he calls ma, which is basically nothingness.
Sure.
And The Master doesn't exactly have that, but it has these scenes where people are dominating others, are like putting down others, are, like you said, it's this master and a dog feeling. But there'll be scenes where they're dominating nothing, no one, nothing is happening. There's no reason for you to be doing this, but they are, and it feels empty in the filmmaking because it's like they have no one to dominate. They have no reason to be doing this. Like that scene, I always think of like when Seymour Hoffman is on the motorcycle and just going as far and as fast as they can.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, what is the point of this?
Yeah, it's quite sparse and it feels kind of plotless and sparse, which I know is a big turnoff for a lot of audiences.
No, I don't mean that, but I mean like, why is he driving that? Why is he doing that? And the only thing I can sense is it's like this dominating thing.
Yeah.
But what reason is there to dominate? You have no reason to dominate.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think he likes him.
Yeah.
He's setting up traps for him. He's like playing this tease.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, great movie. And I know you've seen Boogie Nights is one of your favorite movies, right? So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I guess you know what I mean then with how you see him evolve as a filmmaker, what he's become now. And,
yeah, very different, but still good.
All right, so shifting gears from a testosterone-filled kind of extravaganza like The Master, I want to move over to my number one pick, actually.
Number one.
Really? I was expecting like the drum roll thing. Anyway, it's fine. Number one is a movie.
Subverting expectations.
Oh, thanks, Mr. Ryan Johnson. So, number one is a movie that explores beauty. It explores the superficial nature of humanity, which is a hell of a sentence, but the whole movie's thesis is essentially to kind of look past the exterior. We're so caught up in how especially in today's social media environment, you're able to kind of see, like, only what you're presented with, only what you get. And this movie came out a little bit before or just around when this was exploding, 2013, and stars Scarlett Johansson, who's one of, of course, is like kind of like our generation's Marilyn Monroe in terms of how her beauty has kind of defined her persona, although she's also a remarkable actress and person, and I think that should be getting more attention, honestly, because her performances are like not something I hear, because Scarlett Johansson, let's be honest, man, when I was like 16 and I saw the event, like Scarlett Johansson was always like a crush for a lot of guys, you know what I mean? She's incredible, she's very beautiful, but at the same time, I think it would be wrong to then assert that as who she is, I mean, if you've seen Girl with the Pearl Earring, or not a movie I like, but Vicky Cristina Barcelona, again, I don't like it, but she's great, or recently Marriage Story, which she's amazing in. It's like she is just amazing, and this film.
And she was nominated, I think, for both Marriage Story and Jojo Rabbit.
Right. She was, and again, Jojo Rabbit, she was amazing in that. And in this movie, which by the way is Under the Skin, directed by Jonathan Glazer, British filmmaker, she's front and center, and the movie basically is about an alien who's like come to Earth and dresses up, looks like, has the skin of Scarlett Johansson. So it's Scarlett Johansson as an alien, and it's the whole movie's in Scotland, and the movie basically is about her kind of discovering humanity, and I mean that in every sense, because it's discovering us as a species, but then discovering empathy, discovering kindness, discovering hatred, discovering lust, and especially lust, because her job in the movie is to come to Earth and harvest the flesh of men for like whatever nefarious reason back on their planet. Like, and it sounds like a really sci-fi thing, and that's because it is, but it's not shown in like a Blade Runner kind of way, not to knock on Blade Runner, but it's shown in a very kind of David Lynchian, Mario Bava-esque style of surrealism, and it almost, like, some of it's very Kubrickian. It just has a really unique tone like nothing I've ever seen. And it's ingenious in that it blends a very stylized, very kind of meticulously crafted style of filmmaking with a very kind of documentary on the go aesthetic, because a lot of the movie takes place with her driving around in this van in Scotland, and Scarlett Johansson's Scarlett Johansson, but in Scotland you don't just expect to see her just out of nowhere. It's come on.
Well, now they do.
Well, maybe now, I don't know, but what happened was
she drives around all the time.
Yeah, man. Like, it's like you're ordering food service, like you're at the delivery, and then she just pulls over, and you're like, "Hey, it's a Scarlett." Okay. No, I wish. So, in this movie, she is in a van a lot of the time. She's driving around like hunting for men, and they installed these hidden cameras in the van, and Scarlett Johansson would honk, and non-actors, just guys on the street, would come, and she would try to seduce them. And these guys aren't acting; they're just guys who don't know there's a movie being filmed. And then later on, they would have the guys sign these non-disclosure agreements or whatever, contracts, whatever, and they then agreed to be in the movie. And then the scenes where she lures them into this vacuum to take their flesh is done like with them knowing they're shooting, obviously, and it's a scene, And man, I just can't think of any movie this decade that blends so many different styles and aesthetics together, that has so much to say with so little that it's showing, that shows so much and doesn't tell. I'm sorry?
It must work so well for like the point they're trying to get across about this. So like beauty is skin deep.
Totally.
With like mixing this documentary style.
Yeah, and like actually now that you mention it, the score too is what makes this movie so special, because it does have that documentary style, but you never lose. It doesn't lose that fiction cinematic quality, that you're watching a movie. And a lot of that I have to attribute to Mika Levy, I think that's how you say her, who is this genius composer. I think this was her first movie she composed, I think. So, wow, way to hit the beaches running. And she then went on to compose, I think, Jackie with Natalie Portman, another great movie. And yeah, Under the Skin is the best movie of the 2010s, bar none. That's my list. And yeah, wow. I hope there was...
That was... Well, that was a very good list.
Thank you, Toby. I'm quite proud of it. I mean, the Emoji Movie was almost on there, but
almost on there. I can imagine.
Yeah, man.
I mean, it should be stated that like the greatest film of all time did come out in the 2010s, but it's like
right, it did.
Like if you put it on the list, it's like no duh. So like you can't put.
Come on, silly. I mean, then I don't even need to have a list. I mean, if we're talking, because by the way, my co-host is referring to the eternal masterpiece called X-Men First Class.
Yeah.
Which is the best thing ever made. I mean, movie, sure.
Yeah, kind of.
It's kind of like the best. Like mankind evolved and changed that day when the movie came out. Like we discovered a new plane of existence. Yeah. So it's too big a movie, Toby, to put on the list because it just overshadows.
Yeah, exactly.
It casts a big shadow over like burning. Forget it. Like active killing for active nothing. So yeah, it wasn't gonna work out. Anyway. All right, man. Let's talk. No disrespect to the active killing. It's really good.
It seems that we have that's all the time we had for today, folks. Thank you for coming into the Tail Slate Film Podcast.
We're gonna go back to our hospital wards and get into our straitjackets. So thanks a lot. No, okay. What's your list, Toby? Let's get on.
That's all the time we have for today.
That's all the time our sanity had for today.
All the time we have for today? I do not want to follow you up, but okay.
Why?
All right.
Follow it up.
Are you kidding? We just went with Under the Skin, The Master, and Certified Copy, and Moonlight, and Uncle Boom May, who can recall his past lives, and now I'm supposed to talk about Into the Spider-Verse.
Hey man, Into the Spider-Verse deserves to be along those films. That's a great movie.
All right.
Here's the okay. First off, you bring up a good point. I'm just gonna quickly just talk about it, which is, if your movies on your list or movies you love don't have that artistic I won awards and obscure festivals type vibe, it doesn't mean that those films have any less artistry or that they don't achieve the same things. Into the Spider-Verse in a way is an even bigger achievement, because that movie it's like blending some beautiful poignant themes, but also it's a accessible mainstream Spider-Man movie, so it's everything. All right, so Toby, why don't you give us some of those honorable mentions for your list? How about that?
I'd love to give some honorable mentions.
Amazing. I love that you love to give some honorable mentions. That's very honorable of you.
So
give us those mentions.
So first honorable mention, I got Django Unchained.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
okay.
Really fun. Okay, are you backstepping should we really let him say his list? No, but that's
all the time we have, folks. Thanks for tuning in and
well, I really like the movie. I like the relationship between Christoph Waltz and and Jamie Foxx, and it's a really fun time, and I really enjoy it. Next honorable mention I got is Little Women from 2019, directed by Greta Gerwig. It's got so much going on. I don't usually like period pieces like Downton Abbey and stuff, or Pride and Prejudice, but I really like this because I felt like I understood every character. It wasn't just, oh, it's these people that lived in old times and they all speak like this. No, it's like they're actual human and they have issues. And I even understood characters like Amy, which some people thought was, oh, she's the bad guy. I'm like, no, she's trying to provide for her family. And I like Joe, and all of them are, well, there's one performance that I'm not a huge fan of, but most all of them
whose performance are you not a huge fan of? Tell me.
You know who it is. But like, there's so many who I actually like really enjoy. Bob Odenkirk is in this, and if you guys know like anything Bob Odenkirk is in, I'm really gonna have a good time with.
Yeah. Especially if it's the Emoji Movie, then you love it.
Saoirse Ronan just is Florence Pugh, fantastic. It's just great. And and there's this scene where they have like I think 7 people all talking once, and they're just going through a room, but everything fits in character, and it progresses their characters and their wants and desires, and it's just really great, and I like that. And then also,
what, you sound like so like protective. Like, I like that, okay?
I like that, okay? What, you're gonna tell me I cannot like that?
You just get off my back, you snobby art house piece of shit. No,
I did not say that. What? No.
I have the quote.
Okay. And then I got Knives Out, also from 2019. I really liked these. I really like Ryan Johnson's take on the whodunit, but making it a crime thriller story, but it's also a mystery, and all the characters are super engaging, and I really like it, and you can watch it many times, and it's so much fun, and I love the message in the end, and it's something you should all watch. The less you know about it, the better.
Yeah. Daniel Craig's accent in that film is incredible.
It takes a little while to get used to, but then you're like, okay, I'm on board.
Yeah.
Anomalisa.
Yes.
That I saw recently, and it's like in the time frame of that film, like of the story itself, it's very short. And when you realize what's happening, you've caught on. And it also shows so much about the character. And you could watch that film and take one message away or something and really admire the character. I see that message and I feel pity for the character.
What did you think of the... Sorry, I cut you off, man.
No problem.
Oh, I was just going to ask, what did you think of the animation?
The animation, it fits so perfectly for it. Like, it's... Mm-hmm. I don't think this film could have be done in live action. It's and they play with that animation style as well, like many times in some dreamlike sequences. It's really exposed, and it's fantastic, really. My last honorable mention I really want to give out there is Get Out. Really liked it, and it's a good movie.
Yeah.
And I was very tempted to actually, instead of putting Get Out, to put Us, because Us gets a lot of hate. But I kind of like Us more.
We do get a lot of hate. That's true, Toby. We get a lot of hate.
You're using this to be the victim again, Fareed. That's not what's happening.
Please notice me.
No, but it's a great film, and I really like it, and it goes by really quick. I realized, and but also
totally.
It's got a lot to say, and but also Us is really good too. All right,
it is. Well, actually, Get Out almost made my list, by the way. No, they're great movies for sure.
Fantastic.
Jordan Peele, man.
I cannot wait to see what he does next. I'm so glad when I see like people who star in comedy and stuff now branching out, because it's so hard for people not to see you as the funny guy. No, you're the goofy guy. You must be goofy all the time, dude. That's not how it works.
Yeah, Toby, you have a really... I've seen your dark side. I know what it's like. I know what you're talking about.
Yes.
Yeah. So, okay.
I'm very professional on set, not because I'm a nice guy, but because I'm professional on set.
But Toby, you threw a chair at that guy, man. Come on.
That was not on set.
Okay. So those are your honorable mentions, buddy.
Right.
I think that's.
So I'm gonna start. I already said this one before, but Into the Spider-Verse, And there's so many reasons I should bring this up. I'm going to break it down into two. First of all, animation alone. It's I need more animation like this now. I can't go back to because Disney and Pixar, they kind of like dominate the animation market, and I can't go back, DreamWorks as well, and I can't go back to that same 3D animation style. This animation style is so different, and so much care and love and detail is put into it to making it feel like a comic book. They use focus, they use those what are the dots they call them? You know what I'm saying. It's from a comic book. They use comic book panels, and the movements, everything feels so fluid, and it's fantastic. Like, I want to see more comic book films made into these beautiful animated films where you really feel that movement. You want to be Spider-Man swinging around, you know?
I wanted to be Spider-Man since I was 5 years old.
That's fair.
Yeah, so it's nothing new, but it made me, like, at the age of 23, I was like, no, now I really want to be Spider-Man.
Yeah. I kind of wanted to be Spider-Man before. Now I really want to be Spider-Man. No, it's fantastic. And also, it comes at the perfect time, zeitgeist-wise, when we have this relationship with the character, what it means, because I think for the longest time, we talked about this before, but like Peter Parker has not been a teenager in the comics for a very long time. Like they'll often, like, every 3 years do like this retelling of his story, call it Spidey or something, or use the Ultimate Universe to have a now young teenage Spider-Man. But like, he's owned a company. He graduated from college. He was a college professor. Like, he's been an adult for a very long time.
Wow. Is he like a senior citizen in one of the comics too?
I hope so.
It's like this old Spider-Man that's like just swinging around.
Old man Spider-Man.
It's like Green Goblin shows up and he like shits his diaper.
Jeez.
Like, oh, it's the Green Goblin, you know, and he can barely swing webs anymore. I want to see that. I want to see the Irishman version of Spider-Man.
That was free Chiron. Yeah. Okay, the Irishman did not do that.
Have you even seen the Irishman?
I saw parts of the Irishman.
Dude, De Niro showing up in a websuit, that was like the first scene. Don't lie to the audience.
No. The Irishman is really good. It almost made the honorable mentions, actually.
Yeah, for sure. We talked a lot about that, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm sorry, you were saying about
No, but
Spider-Man?
like every single we've had so many Spider-Man films, but in every Spider-Man film, we only get one Spider-Man per film. And that's not cool. But you know what is cool? 7 Spider-Men in one film. That's like...
Is that how the directors talk?
That was the pitch meeting. They were like, get more Spider-Man in this film. And then like the producers, Phil Lord and...
Chris Miller.
Chris Miller and Phil Lord. Yeah. They swept in like, no, let us... Give this to us, okay?
Yeah.
No, because like I also recently saw Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs again recently. And it's a good film. It's not fantastic compared to where we are now, but you can see where they started playing with animation, then the Lego movie and Into the Spider-Verse. I'm so excited to see what they do next because this came at the perfect time of the zeitgeist. We know the character. We can do these now strange stories. We don't need the same good versus evil. Now we really look into, with great power comes great responsibility. And like Miles' story at the beginning, he does not want to be at that new school. He wants to get out as soon as possible. He does not want that responsibility. But it really explores it in a new, interesting way, and I really enjoyed it. So yeah, I'm gonna put it, just for animation alone, it makes the list. But zeitgeist-wise, it's very special.
Totally. No, it's a great film. Yeah, I've seen it too. I just echo everything you just said. Like, guys, see that movie as soon as you can. It's brilliant.
Yeah. And then number 9.
Number 9. Okay, I'm gonna try doing that as well.
Yeah, number 9. Now this was your number 6, but this is my number 9. The Act of Killing.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the number 6 and the number 9 put together. That's an image. So what was the film? I'm sorry.
The Act of Killing? Were you too busy thinking 69 that you couldn't remember the film title?
I'm a troubled person.
Obviously, man. Okay, jeez.
You don't say.
We're gonna make a documentary about you one day.
The act of whatever this is.
Uh,
And so I'm sorry, man. The act of killing. Tell us about your take on it.
well, I mean, you talked a lot about it, so I won't spend too much time. But it is such a great film. It's so real, and what I really like is films experiences where they take people who are not traditional filmmakers, who haven't studied, but really love movies and get the chance to make their own movie. And they really discover how difficult it is and what that entails. And it's interesting because at the beginning, they're replicating their previous murders and stuff. And like,
Yeah,
as
yeah,
you
like
said,
filming, like they're actually doing just to give some context, like basically in the movie, the killers of the genocide, they love movies, and they told the documentary director, Joshua Oppenheimer, to actually shoot like them playing the roles like of themselves in the past, and also playing the roles of the victims, and so it's like a movie in a movie type thing. It's very meta that they're doing.
But as it progresses, like they want to make it a better movie. They want to really, and they at first they're kind of like, oh, let's make it like this movie, like gangster films. But then they're really trying, and that's actually really fun to see. But when you try and you try to understand the characters, you need to see from their perspective, even the characters you don't like, and that makes them face some things. That makes them come face to face with the victims of their past and what they were feeling in that situation, and that makes you reconsider some of your actions. You're like, okay, maybe I'm saying, like, in a situation, I'd say, like, man, I didn't handle that so well. The act of killing, it's like, oh no, I'm a monster.
Yeah, that's exactly how he said it in the film. Oh no.
Oh no,
oh my.
oh my, oh geez, oh wow.
Yeah, jeez Louise. No, actually, those last 5 minutes, am I right, of that movie?
Yeah.
Oh my god, wow. Poof, those last 5 minutes, I mean, they destroyed me. And I think Werner Herzog said, Werner Herzog like was a big champion of the act of killing, and he was basically like, he's a documentarian too, and full-time badass, but mainly a documentarian and filmmaker. And he talked about the act of killing, and he was like, we want to see another film like this for another 20 years. It will be a long time before we ever see something that authentic. And that was my Werner Herzog impression. Very, very failed one, but I tried. And he's totally right. Like, you'll never see I wish I could tell everyone, but I won't. Like, just the last 5 minutes of that movie.
You gotta experience it.
You've got to. Do yourself a favor and watch The Act of Killing. All right, number 8.
Yeah.
Number 8.
Number 8 is also a documentary. It's called Tickled. Let's look it up right here. It is from David Ferrier and Dylan Reeve. And I'm not going to tell you a lot about it, but basically the story is it introduces you first to this journalist. And I forget if it was David or Dylan, but one of them, they find out about this thing called competitive tickling. It's like, wow, that's weird. And it's this video of these people who are getting tickled. And it's like, wow, that's so strange. So he thinks, you know what, could be a nice fluff piece for this article, for this blog I'm writing for, And so he sends them messages like, hey, would you guys be willing into talking or taking an interview? And they say no, but in much more words. And it's very strange and bizarre. And he's like, okay, there's an actual story here. And he starts going down this rabbit trail. It's fascinating and bizarre where you realize what this really is. Like, competitive tickling is definitely not it is not as innocent as you think.
It just sounds very disturbing, to be honest. I haven't seen this movie, so I'm really excited.
You got it, because like it makes like things happen where you're like, are you kidding? Is this real? This can't possibly be real. Like, there were moments I saw it with our mutual friend Noah. And I looked to him like, is this for real? And he like just nods his head at me.
I see. I can see that image of you and Noah just watching, like, you can't move. Like, what is this? Can't we just watch Monty Python again or something? I feel that.
Okay, but like, I can't spoil anything. You got to watch it, discover it for yourselves. As our film history teacher would say, discover it for yourselves.
All right, so Number 7. If I'm not
Number
mistaken.
7 is another animated film. It's fantastic and beautiful, and I recommend it to everyone. It's Such a Beautiful Day. It's by Don Hertzfeldt, and he's this very experimental animator, and the film is basically only an hour long. I think he has it on Vimeo. Maybe you can see it there. But it's so weird and bizarre and unique and psychological, and I can't tell you anything about it. It's just something you need to experience, and I want to share it with everyone. I know some people who definitely would enjoy it, and I really hope they see it.
I haven't caught it yet. Is it so? How experimental is it exactly? Like, does it go really like abstract?
Yes.
Well, that settles that. Okay. I was expecting like a monologue, man, like getting into the style, but I think you kind of did sum it up.
You gotta. It's only an hour. You gotta watch it. I did not expect it to make my list because I only saw it so recently, and I just put it on because I was like, I'll see it, and wow, it is really good.
Changed your life. Man.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah. All right. So, great picks, by the way. See, this is a great list, man. Come on. All right. Number 6.
All right, number 6 is Her by Spike Jonze, starring
Hey.
Joaquin Phoenix, and I saw it very, very recently. It's a really interesting, fun, not fun, it is fun. It's a fun film, but like I define things as fun. It could be scary or dark and very hurtful, and I'd be like, man, that was a fun ride.
Okay, bro. I'm sorry. Like calling Her fun is like calling The Exorcist a family film, man.
I think Her is very fun. Okay, see, that's where I'm bad at describing things because I like challenging things. I like
Same.
which
Okay,
make me.
you know what?
So then
Actually,
I
you know
call
what?
them
Totally.
fun, and people are like, "That wasn't fun." I was like, "It was pretty fun."
No, actually, to be honest, man, like Her is one of my favorite movies. Actually, didn't quite make the list, but I saw that when I was 17 for the first time, and informed a lot of how I viewed sort of relationships, which is weird because the movie's about a guy who falls in love with his computer.
Yeah.
But really speaks to how powerful that film is. Anyway, yeah, I'm sorry. Continue. Talk about how everybody wears pants that are really high up the waist.
I
You
was
notice
gonna
that?
bring that up.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. This is definitely a future film, like this sci-fi future film, but it's not they have flying cars or whatever. It's that everything's it's kind of the same, but a little bit different. I could actually believe this to be like a future we have in, say, 50 years. 100%.
All right, number 5.
Number 5 is Arrival. This is from 2016. It's from Dallas Villeneuve. And please pronounce it for me. I don't know names.
Denis Villeneuve, and it's glad that you have one of his movies on your list too. I mean, you can't escape it. Like, he's that
He's
good.
fantastic. Arrival is one of my favorite movies just in general because of how you can't really talk about it. You can't talk about it without spoiling because you should go into it expecting this sci-fi thriller film and you'll get that, but you'll get something more, and it means so much to me of the themes and the writing itself and how it works so well. And I love it so much. I love it so dearly, and I cannot say anything about it. Please watch Arrival. It's about aliens, but not the way you think, and I actually really like it a lot.
It's also like just a little like side note about Arrival. That movie kind of, I feel like when you play internal a lot, and Amy Adams' performance in Arrival is very internal, it doesn't get that due recognition because it's so natural and so seamless. It doesn't really look like acting, And that performance in Arrival from Amy Adams is one of the best performances of the last 10 years. Easily. She's so good in that film. She's so good. Like, I always loved Amy Adams. She's a incredible actress, but that movie made her like an all-time great level for me. Like, I was amazed by her. And
Yeah.
also, can we talk about the music of that movie?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, by the late great is it Johan? I think Johan Johansson is how you say it. He passed away, but he was a genius. He also did Sicario score, and the way that it used voices to kind of make the tracks, and like the idea of communication blended into the score, it was magnificent. I mean, that was crazy. All right, so Arrival, great movie. Number 4.
Number 4 is Birdman, or
Or The Unexpected Virtue of Ignorance.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I had the tab open, but it was like it just
Yeah.
showed the Birdman, and it was like or, and I just thought Birdman or, and that's the end of the film.
Yeah, yeah.
It's done in one shot, and it's well at least the illusion in one shot, but it also feels dynamic. Like I get why I'd want it in that, and it cuts the scenes correctly, and it feels dreamlike, and it really covers a lot like of these ideas of fame and what we think greatness is, and kind of, well, you're not really that good if you do this type of film. You're just an entertainer.
Yeah.
You're just a monkey.
Yeah.
You're not really in the art. And it's like, listen, I gave myself to that. And but also
Definitely.
you want to be something else. You don't want to just be that. You know, it goes through all these things of what it's like. It goes to superhero films in a bit, but like when people say like, oh, these films aren't cinema, I think, well, that's not fair because these directors are trying so hard. Like James Gunn is been a very loud voice in this because he puts so much of himself into Guardians of the Galaxy. So if you just write that off, it was like, well, it's in the MCU, so not cinema. I'm like, well, that is not fair to him. You know?
Yeah, but also I don't really think. I mean, Iñárritu is not fond of superhero cinema. There's a line where I don't know. I think they call it cultural genocide, but Iñárritu himself has called it cultural genocide. That's his view, and fine. But Michael Keaton became the Vulture right after Birdman, so like
Yeah.
in a way that kind of absolves the movie of like any sense that it's made by people. Like everybody in that movie critiques it. Like Emma Stone wasn't one of them. You know,
Yeah.
it's like Edward Norton was the Hulk. It's kind of that's kind of okay. So to build on what you said, Birdman is like a play. It's like shot like a play because it's in one take. It's about Raymond Carver, and by proxy, it's about alcoholism because Raymond Carver was a drunk, and
Yeah.
Michael Keaton, who is amazing in that film, Michael Keaton,
So fantastic.
dude. Oh, he should have won. I mean,
I don't think
Stephen
there's
Hawking,
I don't think there's a bad performance in that film, really.
No, none of these films so far, any of these lists. But yeah, that movie is such a. It's like a whirlwind. Like it just completely sideswipes you because it's got so many themes it's juggling, and it's got like 5 writers or something. Like Iñárritu used to work with one writer, Guillermo Argueri. I can't say his name right, but they did the Death Trilogy of Amores Paris, 21 Grams, Babel. I hate that film, but it's like okay, it's an Oscar nominee, and then he made Beautiful with Javier Bardem, and all these movies were very kind of they're very kind of grim and self-serious and carried their artistry, their art house feeling, like except for Amores Paris, which is amazing. Those other movies kind of, I think they lapsed into too much grimness, and they felt like too desperate to. Like I like Iñárritu a lot now. I like The Revenant very much, but I did feel like those films were trying a little too hard. And Birdman on paper sounds like a movie that's trying hard because it's dealing with so many things, and also being a meta commentary about Hollywood and films, you know. And yet, it's seamless. It's a seamless
Yeah.
film. Like it feels like everything in that movie was supposed to be there. And
They choose what should be there, what shouldn't, and it works so well.
it does.
Well, this is probably going to upset a few people, the next one I'm going to bring up.
Number 3.
Number 3 is Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
That movie's amazing.
I know it's
genius.
amazing, but does it make the greatest of the decade list? I believe so. It's so stylized and unique, and I just really enjoy the story. I just love to watch it. I remember when I was in high school, I think I saw it like every month or something, at least once. You never get tired of it because there's so much care and detail in making it match that comic book video game style, and I'm in love with it. It's a fantastic movie. I'm in lesbians with it.
Was that a quote from the movie?
Yes, that's a quote from the movie.
Okay. I haven't seen it in a while. No, it's great, man. Edgar Wright. I was like, why would he say that?
You just thought unprompted I would say that, like, yeah, sure.
That's not cinema.
No.
So
Edgar Wright is one of my favorite directors working today. I love the films he makes and his style. And I remember I once got very mad because I showed this film to someone, or I showed them Hot Fuzz, but they brought up, and I was like, oh, I can see how this is the same guy who made Scott Pilgrim. I was like, oh, really? And I was like, turned to them, like, really excited. And they said, yeah, it's really pretentious. And I was so mad. I was like, it's not pretentious. He's just taking full advantage of this. It's not pretentious. He's just using film to its full extent. He's really going for it. He's putting in care and detail. That's not pretentious. That's caring.
That's not pretentious. That doesn't constitute like, you know what, you bring up a good subject about what is deemed pretentious, and it's unfortunate that now there's certain like things like that you check off, like, oh, the movie's kind of slow, or it's really stylish. It's like, that's cinema, god damn it.
Yeah.
Like, that's what movies are made
Someone
for. Like,
felt that story was best told that way.
I think that we've become a little too picky about what is quality and what exactly is pretentious, you know?
Like, I told you that story before about, like, after my first year of film school, I went back to my hometown, and I actually sat in and taught a film class at my old high school.
Yeah.
And this girl, she asked this question of, why are there no original films being made? Like, everything's, like, based off something from the past. And I said, well, that's not true. Because, of course, the films that the major studios are going to, like, put the most money into will be things that they are very certain will work because they worked in the past. And that's a smart method. They want to put the most money into something they'll get a lot more money from. But there are films that still exist out there, independent films, foreign films, films that just have something new and different, but you just don't notice because you're looking at the posters at the bus station, not at like the directors you liked in that one mainstream film they did, and then they make something on their own, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, like stop. Yeah, to all the people out there, like, stop spending so much time at bus stations. I mean, come on now.
Well,
yeah,
you should not be at the bus station right now, anyways.
Yeah, like, seriously, if now of all times, please, and don't look at the posters either. Okay, so
tear the posters down, destroy the system.
It's like there's like chaos on the streets. Like, what have you done?
I was talking to my friend Sam the other day, and she was asking me, like, hey, did you see this show on Netflix? And I was like, no, I haven't heard of it. It's like, oh, well, they got posters all over the metro and bus station. And I was like, well, Sam, I'm sorry, but I haven't gone to the bus station in like a month or something. So that is very bad advertising, and they are throwing money away that way.
Two words, Google Earth.
I'm not going to Google Earth the bus station.
Hey man, if you want to look at that poster, I mean, well, you know,
maybe that's a really good idea. Like, get a VR.
You could just Google it too, you know. But okay. Anyway,
we're gonna put a VR helmet on and like just Google Earth and walk around, and be like, I'm outside again.
All right, so moving on to, I believe, number 2.
Number 2, that is La La Land. Predecessor.
That's all the time we had for today, folks. Thanks for tuning in.
No. But actually, it's Whiplash by Damien Chazelle.
Oh, amazing.
This was a film that
the good one.
Yeah, well, I mean, like in 2014, J.K. Simmons wins the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor, and I see his speech, and he just strikes me as the nicest person.
Did you call your mom after he did the speech?
I was with my parents at the time, so I was like,
"Oh,
Mom,
good, okay.
I love you," and she was like, "Okay, thanks."
Oh man.
Oh,
anyway, you were saying?
J.K. Simmons became one of my favorite actors, and I've always wanted to work with him ever since then. It's got music, it's got jazz, it's got J.K. Simmons. It's the way it's shot. Like, I knew that, okay, when I see this is definitely going to become one of my favorite films.
What did you think of the editing by Tom Cross? Who's
fantastic.
A master at his
like,
craft?
and also they used multiple cameras at the they multicammed it, and they shot it really short as well. Like how long it took
in no time, and he did so many setups in like a day.
Yeah.
It was nuts. Like it was this ridiculous shoot, man. I heard so much about it. Yeah. As a film, okay, let's say as a like a thriller. Not really that it's a thriller, but as like a movie that's got tension, it's incredibly successful. But as a music film, as a film about jazz, do you think it does it justice as well in that front? Like and if so, in which way?
So I don't know if I can say if it's authentic or if it's realistic, but what I can compare it to is that want to be really good at something, that it's so important to you, and then when that scene where Miles Teller is at his Thanksgiving dinner, I believe, and they're talking about how these how he he's playing in the band. Oh, but these guys are in the football team, and that's really important, and they love to talk about that. But he's like, okay, but my thing is so much more impressive, and it means something to him. And I don't think, and he's kind of a jackass the way he acts, but you can relate to that. You can relate to you wanting to be good at something. You push yourself very hard for it. And I think the ending, you could take one of those two messages of like, maybe you will have to go through hell and it's okay if someone breaks you down because then it'll make you better. Or someone breaking you down doesn't make you better. It's despite them, despite that abuse, you're better. Because
Yeah.
I like to take that message more, because I don't think abusing someone to
Okay.
for a
Okay.
positive,
You clarified that just in time. That's good.
yeah, I don't think abusing someone for a good reaction or something. And I hear this very a lot of time where it's like, oh well, I had a tough time with my parents, so but it made me stronger. It's like, no, you're stronger despite what your parents did, not because of that. They
Right,
do
the
not.
hardening,
Yeah.
but that was like a hardening like thing, right? Because if you have a domestic situation like that, you kind of harden to some of
You
life's
became
grimy
stronger.
parts.
You became stronger.
You did,
They didn't
yeah, but
make you stronger.
you did the work. Yeah, you did the work.
It.
You bounced off that result
Yeah.
and made yourself
And,
stronger. So I see that. Yeah.
And like in that, I think that final ending, I like to take it where it's like, despite what you did, despite what you're trying to do, I'm good. And I know I'm good. And you get that self-worth. And I've had moments like that. And it's the most beautiful thing. And I'm glad there's a film like that, which like makes that real.
Oh, 100%. No, it's amazing. No, man. Great pick. All right. I want to move on to number one because I'm an authoritarian.
Number one.
So, number one.
Now, number one is not just my favorite movie of the decade. It is my favorite movie of all time.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and I first want to say that I first saw this film because I was curious, because of the premise. It seemed like something that would be a fun time. And then I really liked it. And then I realized that when I had a bad day or something and I wanted to watch something, I'd watch that. And it was weird. And then there'd be a time where if I could show anyone one movie that they've never seen before, that I'm sure they haven't seen before, that I can recommend to someone. If anyone says like, what's your movie that almost no one knows but you love? This is it. It's a movie which I probably at least watch on my birthday every year. And it's very personal to me. 2010's The Sound of Noise.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
beautiful, man. Tell us more about The Sound of Noise.
It's this beautiful film about these musical terrorists. And basically there are these drummers, 6 of them, who decide that they're going to hold the city hostage and play concerts in various locations. They're going to play it in a hospital, in the bank. And the detective who is tasked with finding them is tone deaf. And his whole family comes from this long line of musicians, but he doesn't like music. He actually prefers silence. And as he chases them down, he discovers that everything they play on as a musical instrument, he can't hear anymore. It's weird. Mm-hmm. It's never explained, but that's just how it is, and you accept it. And it's just this beautiful.
Totally.
And again, music plays a big part in it because they're making music out of like this passed out dude in the hospital room, out of like shredding money in the bank. It's fantastic. The ending act is just so beautiful and personal to me. And it's a message I don't hear often because I love music. I love to hear things, but also there's a beauty in silence, in just things being that. We should be comfortable with silence.
Yeah, so it's a film that makes you appreciate silence as much as it does music. It's like
and
to appreciate the moments in between as well.
And that's something I think I need to learn as well, because sometimes I'm very uncomfortable with silence. Sometimes if someone hasn't said something in a while, I feel like I need to say something, like I need to instigate a conversation. But sometimes it's okay to just sit there in silence for a bit.
Sure. Do you think that this movie has kind of made you, like, as a person, it's kind of made you evolve in some way, like given you a change of some kind?
Definitely. In what ways, I don't know. I mean,
you can fly now.
Yeah, kind of. I mean,
yeah.
I can jump higher from watching this movie. That's what happens. So yeah, that's a good thing. You know what? I'm going to go even further. To anyone who wants to, this movie is free to watch in America on Tubi. So,
Oh,
yeah, I'm going to say that right now. So if anyone wants to watch that, please do. Perfectly legal way. So, yeah.
nice. Well, that was our best of the decade
That was
list.
the best of the decade list. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Write below in the comments. It's good for the algorithm.
All right. Well, I guess to close this whole thing out, we want to definitely have more guests on the show who are also filmmakers and also trying to put content out there, make names for themselves as independent artists.
Yeah.
We hope you enjoyed this podcast if you're still with us.
And as always, like, don't forget to make stuff even if you're in the quarantine. Like, that's all you got to do. Make stuff.
Totally, just make stuff. Yeah, I mean, but Toby, that could be anything. Like, you could make you could play with Lego sets and make a castle,
Yeah, I mean,
But
like,
I guess
make a film
yeah.
stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like write a script, make a dumb story on Instagram. Like, write a script, edit something, edit a movie you like re-edit it. Write a score or music or like just storyboard. I don't know, man. Like, have some fun. Like, you got time right now. Like, just motivate yourself to do
Totally,
it.
man. I feel like you're talking to me as well because I kind of need to get on this.
I'm talking to you. You have a script and you haven't done zilch.
Anyway, thank you so much for tuning in, guys. And on that note, we hope to see you again next time. And peace.